Campbell. Here. Mr. Wallace. Here. Mr. Algieri.
Here.
Mr. Kellogg. Here. President Boyer.
Here. Okay, there was no executive session this month. And next, we're going to move to the swearing in of our K-9 officer, Bear.
That's the best part. I have
don't know, K-9 officers are officers, even though they're dogs, so they have to be sworn in just like people. Obviously, they can't talk. So the officer that's already been sworn in on behalf of Bear is going to take the oath again. And we're going to try to get Bear's paw on the paper. Ready? I, what you hear, do solemnly swear on behalf of K-9 Officer Bear that we will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of this Commonwealth, and we will discharge our duties with fidelity.
While we have that here, we're going to make a couple adjustments to the agenda. On discussion item number 4, junior commissioner program, we're going to do that up next. Greg, do you want to talk about that?
Sure. The junior commissioner program is a pretty common program throughout local municipalities. It's recruit local high school, generally juniors, sophomore students, and they get to work with different levels of local government, different departments, just get a real nice idea of how it works, get a sense of civic duty and civic understanding.
So specifically, this came from my son. He's had an interest in doing some volunteer work as he's been prepping for college applications, and we were talking about different things that he can do. He is currently volunteering at a food bank, but he also has an interest in local government. He's interested in having possibly a political science major in college. And so, given what I do and what happened here, what we do here, it made sense that we would explore opportunities. So we were talking about it, and some of my other municipalities, actually a bunch of them, utilize this program. It's a good way to get your youth involved in just an interest in local government, to observe, see what they do, see how it impacts the residents. So he actually has presented a resolution for the commissioner's consideration this evening to create the program, and then hopefully, if you're willing to appoint him as the first member, and then we would obviously carry the program. He'd graduate next year, so his term would expire at that point, and then we could appoint going forward.
Yeah, we'd like to keep this program going forward after this. Also, this is a non-paid program, so it doesn't cost the taxpayers anything.
And he doesn't
vote.
vote.
Volunteer.
Yeah, there's no voting involved either. It's really an observation.
So next, we're going to move up. Any discussion, any questions, any commissioners have on this?
I think it's a great program for us. I mean, we've already seen with the intern program that benefit us already with Jessica Cronlin and potentially now Nick Algieri as well. It seems like a win-win situation for us.
Mr. President, my one comment would be is the resolution was written for one person to fulfill this position. Is there really any need to limit this if we were to get more than one applicant who would be interested?
I don't see any reason else.
Yeah,
If
so-
someone would come forward and want to do this, we could look to appoint another one also.
So if you want to change, we'll do the amended resolution, I'll just remove that sentence and then I'll send it over. So if you want to do the motion as it's written, but with the proposed amendment, not to limit it to one person, then we can certainly do that.
My second part of this discussion is, should we do this resolution right now so that we can complete this nomination?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it. I agree.
So we're moving up, resolution number one, motion to adopt resolution 2022 dash 09, establishing a junior commissioner program in Elizabeth Township. Which we have to,
With the amendment that it shall not be limited to the.
with the amendment that it shall not be limited to just one candidate.
I'll make that motion.
Second. Okay, any discussion? Okay, we get a vote.
Commissioner Watt?
Yes.
Commissioner Campus?
Here.
Commissioner Walls?
Yes.
Commissioner Algieri?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
President Boyer?
Yes. Okay, resolution passed. Okay, next we're gonna do, we're gonna move up items for consideration, number 4, motion to appoint Nate Rakunas as the junior commissioner in the junior commissioner program. This is a non-paid volunteer position.
Again, I'll make that motion.
Can I get a
Second.
Okay. Chris, second. Okay, do a vote.
Commissioner Watt?
Yes.
Commissioner Campus?
Yes.
Commissioner Walls?
Yes.
Commissioner Algieri?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
President Boyer?
Yes. I guess we're back.
I, Nate Rakunas, do solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this Commonwealth, and I will discharge my duties as a junior commissioner for Elizabeth Township with fidelity.
Welcome to the team.
Congratulations.
Okay, also, while we have Beth still here, we have a time frame we had to meet for the, motion to appoint a commissioner of Ward 1. So I'm gonna ask if I'd like to accept the motion to open nominations for the vacancy for the commissioner of Ward 1.
I'd like to nominate Adam.
No, I'm,
Motion to open up.
can I get a motion to open nomination?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, can I get a
Second.
Any discussion? We do a roll call vote.
Commissioner Watt?
Yes.
Commissioner Campus?
Yeah.
Commissioner Walls?
Yes.
Commissioner Algieri?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
President Boyer?
Yes. Next, I'm going to make a nomination for Mark Kane and for John McKenzie for the Commissioner for Ward 1. I'd like to see, is there any other nominations?
Adam Cisco.
Ms. Cisco, okay.
Allison Pierce.
Okay, Allison Pierce. Any others? Okay, we'll close nominations.
Okay, so Mark King was the first one, so you will vote in order of the nominations. The first one to get the 4 will win. If the first person gets it to 4, you don't go through the rest. Whoever gets to 4, if it's the second one, third one, you stop at that point.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to appoint Mark Kane as Commissioner of Ward 1. This term will end on December 31st of 2023. Can I get a motion? Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. Great, roll call vote?
Commissioner Watt?
Yes.
Commissioner Campus?
Yes.
Commissioner Walls?
Yes.
Commissioner Algieri?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
President Boyer?
Yes. Art?
I, Mark Payne. I, Mark Payne. Do solemnly swear. That I will support and obey and defend the Constitution of the United States. And the Constitution of this Commonwealth. And I will discharge my duties. As a member of the Township Commissioner. With fidelity.
Good, thanks, thank you. Okay, department reports, there's no code enforcement, report tonight, engineering.
Thank you, Mr. President. The multiple ongoing items, the pump station project, really the only thing to report there is we are in the process of looking at the transformer pad that is close to the ball field and possibly redesigning it so that it doesn't impact the backstop in that ball field area. So we're going to be, really that's the biggest thing going on right now. We have a job meeting tomorrow to talk through that contract. Everything else, still slow on pace, but still slow coming up out of the ground. So everything's moving along there. The Stony Brook hillside slide, Gregor Construction has been out. The end wall and riprap are in. They're starting to do the piping. In about 2-3 weeks, everything will be done there and wrapped up. So that's ongoing. Mansfield storm sewer, everything's ready to go. Once Greg and you guys give us the go-ahead, we'll be ready to move on that. Jacktown Road Bridge, I think is on the agenda for award tonight. The paving program, and I apologize, it's Happy Hollow, this is my bad. I think it's going to go into what Commissioner Laws going to talk about tonight. But for Happy Hollow, the paving program, I do have the contract documents executed by the township. I will get those out to contractors. We'll get our pre-construction meetings scheduled and get those projects moved. MS4, we started to do some MS4 work. Really at a high level, what we've been looking at is your pollution reduction plan. I'm not going to get into the details for you on that, but basically your MS4 permit is up for renewal in September, so we're working on updating that to try to get some more cost-effective solutions to meet the requirements of the state. The only other thing is the Forest Hill slide. We're still waiting, obviously, for an access agreement. Ackenhow did go out. All they did was test pits. There's Greg and I were talking about this before. They didn't go out and do any drilling. They were just doing some preliminary work in advance to a drilling, so we're not going to do anything until we get access. So, that's all I have, unless anybody has any questions.
I don't really have a question, it's just a point of clarification. At our last meeting, you were still waiting for access through somebody's property to complete the Mansfield Drive situation. Has that, obviously, that's been taken care of at this point?
I believe so. We don't have the signed easement yet,
That's
but
what I'm at.
there was indication that it was going to be signed.
Okay. So we have to wait until that easement's signed before this is all, before that's given?
Correct.
All right. That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hold on. The Jacktown project, bridge project,
Yes.
if approved tonight, when does it look like that would actually start?
Typically a month, because a lot of these contractors nowadays, won't start until they actually have a lot of material. Obviously, we don't want them in there doing anything, and then we're gonna wait, weeks for the culvert to come in. So once we award it, we'll be able to get a better schedule depending on the culvert delivery. There's not much that they can do in advance of that, because the idea is to build a bridge adjacent to that, to keep the existing one open, and then once it's done, reconfigure the road. So once we have the pre-construction meeting, I'll be able to get you a better schedule.
And how long does that project actually, say it started a month from today? How long?
I want to say we have a 6-month construction schedule in our bid documents.
Okay. And then I have a question on the Forest Hills as well. We applied for the LSA grant for a different plan.
Yep.
Altogether. This new plan that's coming into play, how did that come about? Such as you're taking borings from somewhere else, like you're cutting into the hillside or something?
This is all, if you guys get the grant, we'll be able to modify what we were gonna do there. It's in the same area. So if you get the grant, it's gonna apply to what, that same
Well,
area.
my question is, did anybody ask you to do that? To modify the plan? Because I don't remember that coming up. To cut into the hillside instead of doing what was originally written, which was build up the side of the road up there and put that through. It seems like the plan's changed a little bit, and I was just curious if that change was something that was talked about, end of 2021, or what?
I can't recall when that came up, but I know we didn't just, it's our KLH that unilateral.
Okay.
I can make comment. So I was out at the site with Connor Tunnel, one of the KLH engineers, Jesse Wade from Acton Hill.
Yes.
And we did a couple, at least 2 site visits. And Jesse in particular started, with his knowledge as a geotechnical engineer, started going up and down the road. And what he started to realize was that the original collapse was worse than the last time we looked at it. Because as you know, this project's been discussed for many, many years. But he also found more slides upstream, more slides downstream. And I think the result of that was, at least on Connor's part, the discussion we had on site was to maybe reconsider a different solution.
Okay.
Now, my guess is he went back, probably talked with Kevin Cray, who's also involved, not necessarily John, John hasn't really been involved in the project.
Do we have any idea how much this may impact the cost, plus or minus, on the original assessment?
The intent was that it's gonna be less, because we're doing, instead of doing soldier pile wall, we're doing some actual cutback. An actual dollar amount, I can find that out, I don't.
I was just curious, if it seems like it'd be less or.
That was the
or break
intent.
even.
That was the
I'm
intent.
okay with it, but if we're gonna double the cost of the project.
It was actually the other way. The intent was to do it without having to do an actual soldier pile wall.
Okay, and you're just waiting on that, and then would it come back before here, and then we would have to vote on a new plan?
Yeah, once we have Acton out there and they do the work, we'll be able to have a better idea of what that would look like.
Okay.
Mr. President, if you'll just, allow me to go back to this Jacktown thing. I was gonna do this during the discussion on the Jacktown motion, but, I wanna make the board aware that, the $642,000 repair on this bridge is just the tip of the iceberg in this area. And I think that we may be getting ahead of ourselves by throwing this big pile of money at that bridge without looking at that roadway above the bridge. We had, okayed approximately $28,000 for geotechnical on an emergency basis at our last meeting. I'm certain that hasn't come through yet. But there's been no plan to fix that road. Now, if we throw $642,000 in fixing this bridge and that road collapses, these people aren't going to be able to get out one way or the other. And it's almost, in my mind, we're putting it out before we're reversing this process. We really should be looking at fixing that road and the bridge at the same time. And And the second part of that is, where the heck are we gonna get that kind of money? That's a $1.5 million project easily. I don't know how many houses are up there either, 6, 7, it's crazy. We need to look at this whole thing together.
I think the bridge, we have to do the bridge.
Paul, would you please make a comment on the road? It's unbelievable, the end of Jacktown, between Jacktown and Mill Hill has been closed for a side.
That's private property up there.
For quite a while.
Yeah, technically that road, that is private property.
I'm not aware that it is. Well, it's also a 200-foot vertical cliff. The other end of the road, which heads back down towards the bridge, is also a cliff, and it's been getting a lot worse this spring. It's down to a one-lane road, and if that gives way, those people aren't gonna be able to get out of there.
Mr. Murray, what's your thoughts on that?
So the intent when we looked at the bridge, that's really the access out of there. So, I mean, there's a hole in that bridge right now. So the concern was if there was some type of failure, nobody's getting out anyway. So that was the intent, was at least get the only access basically shored up with a new bridge and then work your way out. I mean, if you're gonna look to get funds to do everything and you get a failure there, nobody's getting out. You know, so that was the intent. The intent was, let's at least get the only access fixed. And then, you know, if you can get the, you know, money for the rest of it or out grant money or however you wanna do that. But, I mean, if there's a failure, or if somebody goes out, some structural engineer says, you're not allowed to drive on this, then you have a problem, because nobody's getting out.
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Walker, you guys look at this, there's gonna be just major problems in the future. So.
It already is.
Mr. Murray, what do you think next steps should be for that?
Probably the same thing to go out with, Ackenhow, walk the road, have them where they recommend, do some geotechnical warnings. So how that process works and why we bring them in, that is highly specialized, geotechnical side. So those guys come in, they drill, they then basically take the soil samples and they look and they say, okay, based on the soils that are there, either you do A, B, or C. And then they'll work with us to put some cost estimates together, and then whatever's the cheapest is the way to go. Obviously, a soldier pile wall, and they drive the beams in with the lagging, that's the most expensive. If you can kind of cut things back, which we're looking to do on Forest Hills, it's cheap. So the thought process is you bring them in, they walk the road, just kind of like what we're doing on Forest Hills. Then they can come back with a recommendation and say, okay, here's what it's gonna cost to do everything.
What's the cost to get them out there to look at that?
I'd have to find, I can get that. I don't wanna shoot from the hip and just give you a number.
I get back to us on
Yeah,
that.
I'm sure.
Anything else on that, Tom? You guys brought up tonight.
No, it's just that's a real tough situation up there.
Yeah. And I did check with the homeowners up there, the property, that original road that went out the back on the Mill Hill, that's private property. When the people bought it a few years back, they refused to let anyone go on that property.
That's why it was never fixed.
Yeah, it's private property to get to there. So that's why we don't have that, they only have one access jack down, that's it.
So it brings up another point, was that road originally a private road? I bet it was.
Probably.
Somehow or another, the township got talked into taking it over, and now here we are.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's something we got to map into also, maybe find a right of way through there if we need.
Yeah,
to.
It would be a lot easier to go that way than it would be to repair this road where it's fallen in.
Yeah, if you get someone else, that would be great.
Yeah, so what I'll do is I will, I'll call them, I'll get a cost to do a proposal, which I don't think will be much.
Okay.
And then have them give me a cost of what an actual proposal will look like. You know, for them to go out and walk the road, my initial thought of it may not be anything, maybe something small. Then I'll have them give me an actual proposal to do the work. I'll get it over to Greg, and then Greg can get it out to everyone.
That'd be great. Anything else, Mr. Myrie?
Yeah, at that roadside, I haven't seen it up there, but if we're Commissioner Walk is talking about the slides. How many houses is impacted based off of this, the slide up top? Is it all of them, or is it some of them?
It's hard to say, I would guess that there are 7 or 8 houses between the two slides, where it's closed and where it's sliding. But some of those houses look abandoned, so I don't know how many
Say
families are
beyond the
affected.
slide, between the slide and
The closed
closed
end,
end.
that's what I'm saying.
7 houses.
7, but I think it looks like a couple of them are abandoned. I really don't know.
So this bridge could still impact 5 to 6 more houses, correct?
We've got Jacktown Extension, which there's 12 of them.
Oh, there's 12 up there that you can't see from, okay.
So there's a lot of them.
Hey, Dan, why don't you make an offer to buy them out and let them move and shut the road down?
Well, that's a tough call. Well, you just had 12 residents added to this pile. Now, if you're dealing with 1 or 2, it would definitely be worthy 5. Although, I don't know what that process would look like. I don't want to talk about it. But if there's 12 houses that are on extension and another 5 or 6 on Jacktown, then we gotta move forward.
Yeah, I'll get,
Thank you for the clarity.
yeah, no problem, I'll get a recommendation.
Any other questions, Mr. Mallory? Good. Next, Louise, Chief.
Yes, the 3 new officers are progressing well. The 2 of them have completed field training and are now on their own, out actively patrolling. They're both lateral officers, meaning they were previously law enforcement and had to go through the field training program at an accelerated pace. One of the new hires still remains in the field training program. For those of you tonight that saw this second K-9 officer this morning, it's an exciting time for the township. As I've talked about in previous months' meetings, addiction and things are something that's affecting the entire United States, and we're not affected. It's not that we're not affected by here in Elizabeth Township. Last year, over 100,000 people lost their lives to overdoses, whether it's opioids or synthetic opioids. It's something that's just riddling, fracturing, and ending families in the U.S. So with 1 K-9 officer, it's great, but that's 1 person on duty in our current schedule for 8 hours a day, 4 days a week. The 5th day is always a training day. So are we getting that footprint we need with just 1? And the answer, I think, with that, the 100,000 is a 28% increase from the year prior. So, it's just such a thing that I think, the commission board says that, they want to do more and I want to do more. So what we did was we explored and we were able to hire somebody that was previously K-9, purchase the K-9 officer who we sworn in this evening, and it just really does more. It shows the community that we're in this, hate to use catchphrases, but we're in this war against drugs here in Elizabeth Township. So whether you're laying your head here or passing through here and you're somebody that's involved with drugs or dealing drugs or transporting drugs, we're going to do what we can to, reduce that and eventually eradicate that with the township with the best, effort we can. And now our footprint is doubled, whether it's on evenings or daylight. We have a higher propensity now to have a K-9 officer on duty assisting with our law enforcement action. I'm very grateful for that, and I thank you all for your support. And we do a lot of things every week to try and increase Elizabeth Township Police Department's effectiveness, and I think this is a huge positive impact for the community. It's not just about the department, it's making the community a safer place for our children. So, and more exciting things are happening. But it's a good time to be ETPD, and I say that in every email I send to my team. And if you have any questions or if I can be of any assistance answering anything, I'm always available 24 hours a day. I know that because I talk to a lot of you at some point in time for that 24 hours a day on a regular basis. So thank you again for your support.
Chief, a couple months ago, we approved and then installed the license plate cameras. Can you tell the public how we use those already?
Yes, so in every access point to Elizabeth Township, we have installed license plate readers. The one that first installed was on the Boston Bridge, reads up to 500 plates a minute. We can do queries by, portion of the plate number, decals on the back of the plates, and we used it to solve carjacking suspect that fled from Clareton, Elizabeth Township, to his mother's place. We used it for basically a driver had a problem with almost an accident, waved a gun at somebody at the BP down on Smithfield Street. We've had a lot of positive feedback and a lot of positive law enforcement outcomes from that. So we've now moved that to McKeesport Road, the Hollow, the Sutersville entrance, and now Wiggles Hill and 51. And it's technology that I used in my previous job, and we brought it here to Elizabeth Township, and it's working in favor of the residents, and, you know, it's just a great tool because everybody that's partnered in that program, Pleasant Hills Police, Jefferson Hills Police, Allegheny County Police, they're able to also use that data as well. So if someone's fleeing from Round Hill Park and the county police need something, they also can get involved. Hit and runs on 51, Elizabeth Borough, I mean, I can go on for hours, but we've got a lot of stuff here. But again, it's just a great law enforcement tool, and it's being used for positive purposes in our community.
You guys did a great job. Thanks. Any questions or comments for Chief?
I do. I just wanted to let you know that, I think what you guys and your team has done a fantastic job in a short amount of time, taking over for Township Police services too as well. I also wanted to say that I applaud this board here in my short time. You know, we voted unanimously to have a fully funded police department here in Elizabeth and now Forward Township. And knowing that, I want to invite everybody inside and outside of our community. If you want to raise a family, you come here. If you want to retire, you come here. We have the public safety, and we put the safety first for our residents. And it's led by Chief Honick and his staff, and they're the face of our franchise, and they represent the best of us in Elizabeth. And I thank you guys for everything you did, and I thank this board for unanimously funding this police department here. Thank you.
Okay, Paul, Public Works.
Other than the written report, the only thing I have is just a reminder for the public about the brush and limb drop off. It's the last Thursday of the month.
What hours, Paul?
It's,
8 a.m. to 7 p.m.
yeah, I wasn't sure exactly on that. Because, you have to stop in the office and show ID just to prove that, it is township. That's all I have.
Okay. Any questions or comments for Paul?
We're gonna talk about the area. That's a-
Discussion, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, sanitary, Bueller.
Thank you, Mr. President. For the month of June, we treated a total of 26.8 million gallons of water. We were in full compliance with effluent limits. We responded to 39 PA1 calls, and we continue to work with the contractor moving on the construction of the new pump station. I can address some questions.
Any questions or comments?
Not so much a question, but just to explain to the board and the public as to how Veolia works with the township as well as contractors. There was a collapse of a main line that happened on Lincoln Hall. And a collapse means sewage can't get through. So Billy and his crew responded with their camera because you need to find out whether this was really collapsed or could it be possibly lined, so forth and so on. It became such a big problem that they had to, on an emergency basis, bring Insight pipe in, and it took Insight pipe 3 days to clean and camera this section on Lincoln Hall, only to find out that this part where the pipe had collapsed was not going to be able to be lined. It was 20-some feet down. JR Contracting was then brought in, and they did an emergency repair on this. I believe it took them all, 3 days, Bill? Max, that was amazing. They really did a fantastic job. They held the cost down as well. I was looking at the bills today, and that whole deal was just short of 30 grand. I was expecting it to go to 100 grand, to be honest with you. And now we're in a situation where that section of pipe had multiple root systems, hence the reason that Insight couldn't get through it. It took them 3 days. So this section needs to be looked at for pipelining. So Insight made a recording of their camera. That recording is now being reviewed by KLH. And I'd like John just to speak briefly as to how this will be moved forward, because these are the things that happen behind the scenes, because we don't often talk about what we do to repair the sanitary lines in the township. And these are also things that should be done on a preventive basis, as opposed to waiting until the damn thing collapses, to be frank. So it's expensive, but it's really needed. John, can you comment on the next portion of this, how it will go?
Sure, thank you. I apologize, I didn't know you were gonna kick me in and just put a mint in my mouth, so. So we did, Commissioner Walk did tell me, gave me a heads up that, and we had talked prior to them going out, best course of action. And both of us came up with a game plan, they went out. We did get the thumb drive, we took a look at it. So typically then, what happens, and I was explaining to Kyle, there's a national standard out there, it's called NASCO. No matter what CCTV company is doing the video, whether it's Robinson or Insight, there's a grading scale, from 1 to 5. 1 meaning that it's good, 5 meaning that there's imminent failure, or 5 meaning it has failed, collapsed. So, we got the video, we looked at it, and in that line, there are multiple level 4s and 5s, which means there's imminent failure or it has failed. So, really then the next course of action, if you guys want to proceed, we will take, and I talked to Connor, one of our engineers today about this. So, what'll happen is give us the okay, we'll go out, we'll look at it. He already broke down by each manhole segment run what is there. Some of them are roots, some of them are cracked pipe, some of them are collapsed. Based on the severity in each run, some of it may be able to be lined, but some of it may be to the point where you can't line it, and it would need to have a, what they call manhole to manhole replacement, actually have to go in and dig it up. So, the next, in my opinion, typically when we're asked, the next step would be for us to look at this, come back with a cost estimate and say, it's gonna cost X, and we're gonna do so many linear feet of lining and so many linear feet of direct replacement. And then you guys can say, go ahead, put the plans and specs together, let them know what I'm doing.
Will that go out for bid?
Pardon me?
Will that go out for bid?
Oh yeah, more than likely, based on what these defects are, it's gonna be over the bid limit, so yeah, you have to.
Oh, yeah, it's gonna definitely be, I know this isn't on the agenda, but, so we would just be asking for a proposal. Yeah, I'd like to
No.
see this.
So, for us to put a cost estimate together, that would just be something we'll do under our retainer.
Okay.
So you don't need to, we'll go ahead, I'll take a look at it, I can come to the next meeting with basically a rough cost estimate. I can email it to Greg actually, and I can have a conversation beforehand. You can try it out.
Get that to Greg.
Yep.
That'd be great. Anything else, Tom?
That's it.
Okay, solicitor?
I don't have anything to report other than the ongoing litigation personnel issues.
Okay. And Township manager?
Thank you, President Poyer. We'll start off with some grant news. Good news, we got a recycling grant, we got an award for $276,085. There's a 10% township match for that, so somewhere around $27,000, which is not a whole lot of money. The grant was written to purchase 55-gallon recycling containers for every resident of the township. The kind that are picked up by the truck and dumped, so that's a great thing. I'd like to thank Waste Management, they got some really good pricing on those containers, which helps keep the price down, because obviously they want that service also. So, that's great news. We also received $40,000 from our Shaycog CD Year 48 grant for demolition. We're gonna demo 4 properties in Smithdale. 1 on Margaret, 1 on Ocean, and 2 on Smithdale Road. So KLH has already started working on the specs for that. solicitor.
I've already got I've got the title back on 3 of them, so I'm waiting on one more. So
All right, so moving right along.
next month we'll be ready to set the hearings.
Great, great. Also, we're working with a grant writer that's a local resident, spoke with him today. He's gonna get some information together to apply for a Choice Communities grant, that's gonna be for the Forest Hills Road, collapse. And I have a question for Solicitor Kunis later on about partnering with a 50C, 501C, if that's possible. In his opinion, that might help us secure more grants for different parts of the township. And then, I got notification today that the Allegheny Conservation District has opened up the dirt, gravel, and low volume roads grants, which is a yearly grant cycle. And we're also gonna apply for that also for Forest Hills Road. So at that point, if they all go through, we'll have 3 major grant applications out there for that one project.
We can agree on this. Commissioner Tillman, if you guys want to FYA, reach out to him also. He has several grants for recreation, he really wants to.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah,
partner with
I'll
the
Bobby back.
organization for it. Okay.
Also, was notified by the Allegheny County Public Works Department, or Planning Department, I think it was, about a down the road project with Simpson Howell Road. They're always interested in connecting the park, Round Hill Park with the trail. Part of their plan is to possibly, this is all possibly, create bike lanes on Simpson Howell. And the reason she asked, called me was to see if the township would be interested in cooperating with that project. I said it would, because it also involves road improvements and stormwater improvements, which we would never say no to that. So, I'll keep you posted about that. That was a very preliminary.
We put those on the website for the residents to look at.
We could, you did send me a pilot plan. Couple other things I'll maybe discuss later. We did the ball shield salt shed recently. I would like to suggest that the next stage is specifically on the full building, possibly before winter. The last estimate that came in were around 60 to 80,000. If that's the way we decide to go, that'll keep the equipment out of the bad weather in the winter. And then I would love to look into, obviously it involves money, but look into getting the township parking lot in more shape. So that's kind of the sequence of things I would like to see personally, but it's all obviously up to you. And lastly, as Mr. Bauer mentioned, Stony Brook is on its way. It's about halfway finished, if not further. I just want to thank you for your support of that project. My early days when I was driving around the township, and I got a phone call to look at that, I was actually in complete disbelief that it had reached the point it had reached. 3 of our residents were losing their yards and sheds, and some were full. It was just getting worse and worse. Trees were completely pulled down. We were just losing the hillside, basically. So again, thank you. It's gonna go well. I'm sure the design will work very well. I know we've had some bumps in the road, but you know, when you're on a hill that steep and you're tearing up trees and dirt, it's gonna happen. So I think we've kept it under control, and I'm really looking forward to it being finished. And then lastly, we're a little short-staffed in the office, and I just want to thank my very, very small staff of 3 people that have really stepped up over the last couple of weeks to just help us get through this transition. I've been out of touch with most of them because I've been handling a lot of the building stuff. So they're obviously self-sufficient and I'm very reliable, so I just want to thank them. That's all I have.
Any questions, comments for Greg? Okay. Committee reports. Budget and finance, we did not have a meeting in, this past month. Code enforcement?
We did not have a meeting this past month.
Okay. Parks and recreation?
Nothing to report.
Okay. And personnel?
We had multiple interviews for the open code position. It was a quick but long drawn out process, kind of what you want to say, right? Every day, but we're confident we found the right candidate. He's very well spoken, very professional, and has a great background, so we're looking forward to working with him.
He has all his certifications too, correct?
Right.
If I may add, he's gonna start on the 22nd. Will be his first day.
Public safety and public works?
We did have a meeting with the fire chiefs, on what we could do to help, so that's gonna be a work in progress on, things we're looking to do in the future, but nothing concrete to report as of yet.
Sanitation, stormwater?
Nothing to report.
Okay. And the comprehensive plan and, general government, we did meet a couple Saturdays ago, comprehensive plan. We're in the process of trying to, pick a committee for that. Variety of residents, trying to get all different backgrounds on this committee. And we also have two things we're already started on. One is, we're doing the township directory. Commissioner Thomas kind of spearheaded that for us, which has been great. Newsletter, I'm sorry, yes, newsletter, I'm sorry. And, so we're working on that, and then we're also working on signage for the township, for all the entrance ways, and also for the municipal building. Next is, public comment. Sherry Johnson, 506 Lincoln Street.
So my name is Sherry
Sure, if you
Johnson.
close the mic and then state your name and address.
Hi, my name is Sherry Johnson. I live at 506 Lincoln Street. We have several issues going on Lincoln Street. One, which is a safety concern for me, is their construction is to the left of my house. And they have been using the gates, they've been opening the gates quite often and bringing big industrial trucks and flying down the street. There are at least 12 grandchildren that are 10 and under on that street. We're not used to having that open. I mean, it's been closed up. I was born and raised there, so it's been closed my whole life. It was an access to walk through, but never like a dead end to that entity. Anyway, and I'd also like to see when they're dumping slag and concrete, big rocks, all the dust, you just see a dust cloud go over the whole neighborhood. And is there any way that they could possibly put something else that would prevent that from coming our way?
Sure, when our new code guide starts on the 22nd, I'll have them put that as one of the first months, let's get down and talk to you.
I guess that would be next door as well.
We can do that also, yes.
Okay, the other thing I want to address, there are 2 boats on our street. Neither one go in the water. Are we just a storage community now?
Yeah, these boats are parked on the road too, this is not right.
Someone keep moving, they'll move them to the yard, to the road.
They're still on the road. They've been on the road, the latest one for 2 years. The other one's been there since they moved in. And it's never been in the water at all.
Chief, is that something you guys want to handle or code enforcement?
Yeah, we cited one of the boats and then it left town and then it came back. The other boat is under construction, but they keep it parked on the private property, so it is technically, it gets in the code stuff, with the boat. The boat's registered and the trailer is licensed, since we cited it the first time. And then, Ms. Johnson and I have had a discussion about considering speed bumps, on her side of Lincoln and on the opposite side, as we've done with other recreational locations in the township. If we don't feel that we can get, cooperation from, the parallel business owner. I've had discussions with the drivers and the business owner at that location.
What was it cost on those speed bumps, just curious?
$200 each.
That's it? Okay, good.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jerry.
Thanks.
Dave Chambers. Dave, you go, so state your name and address.
Dave Chambers, 302 Long Street. I'd like to address 3 things. One is 304 Long Street. My neighbor, Mary Ellen Koenig, appeared before you last month to discuss the bamboo issue of the yard. I would like to echo that as well. It hasn't actually hit my property yet, but it's within 30 feet. The second one is 308 Long Street, the property next door to that. It's been condemned, boarded up, broken into a couple of times, reboarded up for at least 5-6 years. Where do we stand with actual demolition on that property?
Did we put that one on our top list, top 10 list? Greg,
As far as demolition,
Yeah.
it's also become a thumping ground. There's a big screen television set, and I'm not talking about a modern big screen, I'm talking about an old school, that's now in the front yard of the dump there.
Okay.
Third thing is the fence that's blocking off Long Street access to the river. I understand why it went up initially, it was needed. That problem is gone. Does the township still own that portion of the road, or was that purchased by your road development?
I'm not sure on that.
Paul, do you know anything about that fence?
That was put up with, I found out about it after.
We, the township did not put that fence up.
Well, then, I would like to have the property owner remove it. If they want to fence in their property, but that's on a public road that blocks complete access to get to the river from people
We'll
who
get
can
that right
it.
away. Yeah. Thank you, that's on that, I can get a hold of Dave. I'll get with you.
Who do you think put that fence up?
Our road development purchased that lot. That, it's an expansive lot, but that fence is not on their property, it's actually blocking.
Oh, yeah, I'm aware, I've seen it, I just didn't realize that. Well, that was put there to keep
I understand.
hoodlums from driving around in the back and, I mean, that
Well,
was
I
crazy.
crazy understand, but if they're gonna put a fence up, it should be on their property, not the
Right.
public introduction.
Thanks, Dave. Matt Williams. State your name and address, man.
Matthew Williams, 301 Long Street. I'd like to voice my concern about the health issues with 303 and 303 rear. Right, there's 200 to 400 tires in 303's fenced-in yard, like a breeding ground for rodents and mosquitoes. Like, I have 3 kids that live right there, right? I don't want them to have West Nile or Zika or whatever's coming this year. They were cited, nothing's been done about it. Like,
Yeah, that actually did make it to the magistrate, so I think we're gonna have to, we actually did send it to violation to try to get it back into the courts.
and
They
then,
did make it to the courts.
like, they haven't cut their grass, their fence is falling over into my property. I mean, like, there's rodents and big giant rat snakes all through their house, like, their property. Like, they
Yeah,
don't
this
do.
one's been accelerated, it's actually gone before the magistrate, so this is one that's up further, so we are working on it. But again, court's on it, isn't that?
And then the second concern is 303 rear. They have like a gray water cesspool.
What do you
Where
mean?
they have their, I wanted, at least their laundry sink, I'm thinking their kitchen sink too, is running out of their yard, or out of their house through like a 3-foot, pipe and emptying into the back of my yard. I've had the water company and the last code enforcement guy there said he was gonna take care of it. This was last spring and nothing's come of it. And like, I can't cut my grass back there because it's,
This is the first I've heard of this one. Greg, we'll can then be.
So that's sewer, sanitation,
Great.
right?
Looks like it's not in the Washington water.
it's gray water. It's disgusting. And like, you know, that's also a breeding ground for mosquitoes too.
Yeah, and I appreciate you bringing this to our attention, we didn't know about that.
That's all I have.
Okay, thanks, man.
Thank you.
Okay, Sandy Hearn.
My name is Sandra Hearn. I live at 156 Gross Drive, Elizabeth, 15037. Tonight I wanted to talk about the interconnect that's supposedly being proposed near the high school. I would hope that you would not set a hearing date until all information and permit applications are in for the interconnect. I would hope that you would send this back to the plan for more information, answers, and discussion. Will Olympus continue the project without the interconnect? From the plan meeting, Olympus said half of the interconnect pad is their responsibility, and the other half is F-Trans. The Does Equitrans fall under our oil and gas ordinance? On page 5 of the oil and gas ordinance, section 603, it says, if each affected property owner affected signs a waiver, the township commissioners shall have the ability to approve the conditions. The ability, but they don't have to say no. Have you met with Equitrans for pre-application meetings? What is the distance from the edge of the interconnect pad to the high school property line? What entry will Equitrans use to build, maintain, and operate this facility? Not from Lucas Lane or Miller driveway, I would hope. Noise, dust, dirt, vibrations. How would you prevent this? What amounts of noise will be heard during the construction at the high school of internet pad and buildings and equipment? Or will there always be continuous noise, vibration, humming from this facility? Will there ever be a release of methane or butane into the air? What is the emergency notification procedure and plan for construction operation at the well pad site in the case of an accident? Where would the senior high school students, faculty, employees evacuate to? What would be the timeline to evacuate? Where is the evacuation plan and can we see it? Have you, the commissioners, visited the site? Can you arrange for interested residents to tour the site? From the minutes of the commissioners meeting on March 4th, 2019, page 8, number 11, there was a motion to approve the amended oil and gas ordinance. Commissioner Walk made the motion. It was seconded by Commissioner Blake. There was a question on the motion. Commissioner Simolo asked if this includes the new setbacks and is told by the solicitor Kunis that increases the setbacks to 25 feet to 1,500 feet. There was a roll call vote. 5-2, motion carries. Commissioner Simolo and Beckwith voted no. Solicitor Rakuna's comments that an ordinance can always be changed. Perhaps we need to look at that. We need a strong ordinance that does not rely on a back end. We believe we need to hire, I believe we need to hire an attorney who specializes in oil and gas ordinances and issues. Olympus hired Blaine Lucas. Invenergy hired Bill City. I would like to hear what questions each commissioner has. Mr. Mukuna said it's a matter of the board's philosophy. This is a new board. Only Kyle Walk and Matt Rakunas remain. You should never be put in this position.
Sandy, your 3 minutes are up.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Sandy. Bill Piper.
Evening. Bill Piper, 714 Clark Street. I'd like to draw an analogy for you gentlemen tonight. I've broached this subject before, but as Sandy said, there's so many new faces on here, I think it bears repeating. A few years ago, 2 tumors appeared in the township. We'll call them Apollo B and Plutus. The board at the time blessed it. It set down roots. As any tumor will, it'll reach out tendrils. It'll look for a vein. It has to find nourishment, something to thrive on. And these 2 found the Yaukagani. And the board at the time blessed it. So a lesion appeared on the banks of the Yaukagani, a pumping station. Now a few years have passed. As all cancers will, it wants to spread. It'll go from a liver to a lung. And this one's spreading too. They want to set down roots in raw straight. And where are they going to get their sustenance? They're going to get it from the Yauk. But they're not going to need the board to bless it because they've already established their beachhead down in Blyhill. It'll just do double duty. Get closer to home. As everybody's aware, they want to sink a well out by the high school. Let's call this brain cancer. Not only do they want the gas, but they'll relieve us of our coal too. This is akin to a thief saying, give me your wallet and I'll take that watch too. They're also going to put a lesion down at the bottom of Nichols Hill. They want a compressor station. What are we going to have this township look like? We want it to look like Alrama? You guys are supposed to be our immune system. You T cells are supposed to protect the individual cells, the citizens of this township. And so far, your predecessors have done a piss poor job of doing it. Are you guys made of sterner stuff? I guess we'll find out. Thank you. Thanks, Bill.
able to
Can you
follow
state
my
your name and address there?
Eric Piper, 103 Teak. I'm not gonna be able to follow my dad.
I would tag team.
With them nice socks. I guess what I want to talk about is I think that we should appoint a special counsel outside of our solicitor for any dealings related to Olympus. And there's a couple reasons why I say that. I've been attending these planning commission meetings and these meetings for the last 2 months, and this is what I've seen. I've seen our solicitor at the beginning of the last planning commission lecture us, the public, on our conduct and our professionalism at that meeting and how we need to act professional, but then after that meeting, verbally assault a resident in the lobby in front of a couple different people. And to me, that's not professional, and it reeks of intimidation, some of the things that was said. I know that you guys have all got that documentation. Second is, we talk about transparency. We need to bring transparency to this township. My dad talked about the prior boards, and they're not being here. Bart Rocca talked about processes and procedures, and part of doing that stuff is you say what you do what you say, and you document it. So when we asked for a text amendment that was put on, that was brought to you guys on May 2nd, and then all of a sudden Olympus's application shows up on May 3rd. The text amendment doesn't make it on the planning commission's agenda. We don't know why. We asked for a FOIA request to find out why it wasn't on. Transparency by a solicitor? No. He says attorney-client privilege. Another thing, Dan wants to do a second meeting, which is great. It's a working meeting. Our solicitor last meeting says, no, we can't have public comment in those meetings. Why are we so against the public comment?
have public comment.
Okay, so I was gonna say, you did say that, I was here. So Jefferson Hills allows public comment in the beginning and at the end of their meetings. In the first planning commission meeting I was able to attend, the solicitor that was there at the time allowed us to question Olympus after their presentation. This one, our solicitor didn't allow us. And the last part is competency. I find out in the last planning commission meeting that our township is being sued by our own residents because we didn't get the necessary permits required for the pumping station for Olympus. So in our hurry to provide them, to save them millions of dollars, we didn't get the required documentation. What do we get out of that? Now you get sued by your own people. So I think that the commissioner should really think, this is what I've observed in 2 months of coming to these meetings.
You're 3 minutes up, thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, sir.
Hi guys. Sorry, I'm gonna try to keep myself together, but it's the first time I've seen a lot of you in 2 years, so. I apologize for interrupting you. Joelle Whiteman, 126 Walnut Circle. In light of recent events, I am here tonight with a big ask from the board. I'm here to ask that this board make a decision immediately regarding representation of the township for the upcoming Olympus conditional use hearing and hire outside legal counsel. It is very unfortunate that it has come to this, but in order to have a fair hearing process, there seems to be no other option. A few of you have expressed concerns and have had questions on this process, so I have made copies for each of you from the PA First Class Township Code and Elizabeth Township's own oil and gas ordinance that will verify that the township can do this and has done this in the past. First, you'll find Article 1201 from the First Class Township Code that reads, the Board of Commissioners may appoint and determine the compensation of the township solicitor and as needed, special counsel. Next, you will find Article 18 from the First Class Township Code regarding contracts, letter B, number 5. The contracts or purchases made by the Board of Commissioners which shall not require advertising, bidding, or price quotations as provided in this article are as follows. Those involving personal or professional services. The last document I've given you is section 605, specifically number 7 of the Township's Oil and Gas Ordinance, which reads, the owner or operator shall be responsible to pay the Township's reasonable attorney fees and engineering fees and expert costs born in connection with the conditional use application and hearing process. For those of you who are newer, you may not be familiar with what the township has done in the past when it comes to hiring outside counsel for specific professional services. We hired attorney George Goebel twice, I believe, to investigate the sanitary authority. No reimbursement for that. We then hired attorney Nick Avashovic to investigate the same thing we paid attorney George Goebel to look into. We also paid him to look into George Goebel himself. No reimbursement. We hired attorney Gretchen Love to handle numerous personnel lawsuits. No reimbursements there. And we hired attorney Gary Matta as assistant bond counsel when no assistant bond counsel was needed. What I'm getting at here is that the township is no stranger to hiring outside representation to handle special matters. And I believe, above all else, this one should be treated the same as it has the potential to affect countless families, not only in this township, but throughout the school district. At least we will receive some sort of reimbursement for special counsel on this matter. As I recall my time employed at the township, I distinctly remember emailing every invoice we received from our engineer or solicitor regarding Huntley & Huntley or Olympus work over to them for reimbursement, as well as reimbursements from Invenergy. So this township is most definitely familiar with the process. This community elected each of you to represent our township and have our voices heard with the promise of transparency and fair treatment through all municipal processes so that we can all work together towards a better future here in Elizabeth. So I'm going to ask you all to please make that motion for special counsel on the conditional use application tonight. Thank you for that. Thanks.
February 1645 Senior Drive. I don't have a lot to say here, which is unusual for me. I would love to go ahead and actually let someone else who got cut off in their 3 minutes use up my last of my bit at a time. We used to have a clock here that told you exactly where you were and how things were going. That clock isn't here anymore. You have no idea until you're then told, hey, your 3 minutes is up, that it's up. And there's no way to go ahead and know when to wrap up or anything else.
I just know it's gonna be a broke, so we gotta get another.
But the people at the beginning had legitimate concerns, and I'm not begrudging them anything at all about all the different places along the street that was having issues. It was beyond 3 minutes, and you guys answered questions, and everything was fine. And people are trying to wrap up the last conversation that they're having, and they're told your 3 minutes is up, when they don't get a chance to even know when their 3 minutes are, because there's nothing here whatsoever. So I don't think it's fair to them when other people were able to have the other. Emil was able to go ahead in the middle of a thing, go ahead and raise his hand and say, hey, I'm gonna say something, and Kyle responds to him when nobody else has the ability to have a conversation at all. I have tried to go ahead and say that we should have the placement, and I appreciate how you guys have changed that, of how if there's presentations done, we should have communication that's able to be done after that so that we can talk about that. The way that it was done in planning the first time around, whenever there was the ability after the presentation by Olympus to have comments because you had no idea what they were going to say. I think we are vastly missing the opportunity for the residents to have their voice. And if it's in a matter of oil and gas, if it's a matter of Olympus, if it's a matter of Invenergy, it will be cut off all the time. If it's in other matters, it's not. And that's not fair. And I would love to go ahead, I have no idea how much time I have. I'd love someone else to be able to say something. I'm very disappointed in how this works.
Sandy Stephen. See if you can state your name and address.
Hi. Sandy Stephen, 105 Maple Circle. I would also like to reiterate what Joel Whiteman had to say to the board here about conduct that was unbecoming of one of the officers from this township. I come from a really strong background of domestic violence intervention advocacy. I was a director at Women's Place Center for Victims for quite some time. It's already difficult as a woman to be able to walk into many environments and be able to hold your own and have that kind of respect shown. To have somebody be verbally attacked, I did not hear it personally. I heard from several of my neighbors who overheard that. That is not the reputation that we want to have here in Elizabeth Township. Commissioner Toma, you made a very good point when you said that we embrace whatever goes on, our community is safe. Chief, as you said, all the work that's being done with the police department, there's no doubt that we're making strides with that. But if we can't start at a basic level here for how our officials conduct themselves, how are we gonna invite anybody else into this township? Because if the media were to get a hold of that, we would be a laughing stock. You know exactly how that would play out. So if we want to welcome people into our community and say, please set up shop here, put down roots here, like me and everybody else has done. We have families. I grew up in the South Hills, it's a little bit different there in how they conduct themselves with their municipalities. So I want to stay here. I want my son to feel proud to be part of this community. But that kind of behavior is certainly not appropriate, it's not acceptable, it's not professional. I can go on. So I would certainly like to request that you also take a look at the opportunity that you have to have special counsel assigned to this to make sure that there's objective eyes being placed on it, because clearly there's some sort of triggering information that's happening that's making emotional outbursts like that. And again, if the news gets a hold of that, you're gonna have bigger problems.
Thanks, Dan. Eric, you can state your name and address.
Eric Catcher, 105 Maple Circle. I'd also just like to reiterate the need for special counsel. I just feel our solicitor has failed this township immensely. You guys are responsible for that too. Everybody needs to educate themselves on this matter. Do you guys realize that fracking equals cancer? It's guaranteed to happen. You can look right down the road in Cecil Township. There's plenty of kids that have some of the rarest brain cancers, and it's all tied to fracking. You can't control it. Noise walls don't work. None of that works. But this solicitor has got to be held accountable. Thank you.
Okay, next is items for discussion. First one is fencing for the municipal garage. We talked about this at the last meeting. We got some bids in, and they didn't have anything for gates. So Paul, can you talk about that a little bit? What you think we actually should get compared to what our bids were?
Yeah, we originally got the bids, they were just fencing for basically, visual comparison to the materials in there. And Greg and I talked about is, he wants to actually support them. So that would take the gates and similar to what's on the fuel tank. You know, a solid rolling gate on the field. Not just swing out the edges, it rolls in and out of place. We have to be good.
Well, just any questions or comments on this, guys?
How do you envision it, that by key lock, not locking it, or using the key fob?
And just to.
Just slides, no lock?
Yeah, just a padlock would be.
Okay.
Any other questions?
So you're basically talking about a gate that will not have a motor, it will not have.
No, just like our fuel tanks.
Okay, let's move on forward and get any additional bids after the gates on. The next is township building sign. Commissioner Tillman, if you want to talk about that?
Yeah, last meeting, and a couple other ones, we talked about signage. With some of the discussions with a few of our commissioners, we talked about getting a digital sign out front. What we'd like to also do is seek 2 more bids, and I think Greg's and his team's working on those secondary bids, but also too is how it's actually presented. Currently, we have a wall up there. We talked with myself and President Boyer. We talked about maybe removing that and actually adding something a little bit nicer to add to the new sign. So my hope is to work with Greg and his team this coming before next meeting and see what we can come up with our plan. To have something finalized that the board can actually look at and approve.
Any questions about this? Next is the workshop meetings. Trying to figure out the right times, just to make sure all the commissioners can make it. I always wanted to do the 3rd Monday of every month. Kind of goes in with what the commissioners used to do years ago. And just wanted to see if, how that would work with everybody else. If we did that, what time might work, and if not, what alternate days might work. I know Commissioner Alfieri, Monday might be tough. 545 possibly.
My point, two things. One, because I work in Medical County Cancer, I want to make sure I make it to the meetings. But two, I think the closer you get to 5 and not 6, we want to have the opportunity for the residents to be able to come too as well. And I think that gives them a little bit of time to actually get their kids settled or get their family settled from the job and actually come and witness the workshop.
And the reason we're doing these is so we can get items that we're talking about out in the public 2 weeks earlier. Give a chance for us to research them, the residents to research them, the residents to talk to the commissioners, just kind of get out there rather than you finding out at the meeting on the Friday before the agenda comes out. Just try to get these items out there a couple weeks ahead of time. But I also want to make sure we can get as many commissioners as possible for this. Rich, if we could do 545, would that work for you?
That'll work.
Okay, Chris, would that work for you?
Yeah, it should.
Okay.
Everybody
We'll do
has
it case by case. We'll start with that. We won't set the agenda for the rest of the year and we'll be able to adjust that. Especially after, October, we could, move it back a little bit then. So starting in August, we'll do, 545 on the third Monday of the month. Does that sound good? Okay. Okay, next is non-expenditure items, consent vote. The first is motion to allow the Italian, the former Central Blood Bank to be used in this building to host community blood drives. Schedule would be at the discretion of the township manager. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes. Second is the motion to approve the commissioner meeting minutes dated June 6, 2022. Can I get a motion?
So,
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes. Next is motion to set the meeting date for Elizabeth Township Commissioners to view the Olympus Energy Hercules well pad conditional use application on.
So the mutually agreed upon dates have been selected to August 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. So that's a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I believe. The first Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in August.
We'd like to ask a question.
Thursday won't work for me. Just the question's out. Question's out.
This is more discussion. Go ahead. Second.
Thursday won't work for me, so second or third.
Wednesday.
So Wednesday the 3rd it is.
Okay, so we'll go with, Wednesday, August 3rd. At this time,
Okay.
7 o'clock? 7 o'clock? We thought we should do it earlier, because it's gonna be a lot.
I think it's at least 6.
Okay, 6 o'clock. Okay, can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to have this meeting held on Wednesday, August 3rd at 6 p.m.
Okay.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next is expenditure items. Motion to approve the township bill warrant dated July 11, 2022, in the amount of $592,103.11. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
second.
Roll call vote.
Commissioner Kane,
Abstain.
Commissioner Walker,
Yeah, he can't, he hasn't been here, he probably hasn't even had a chance to review.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, yes, yes, he did.
Okay.
Yep.
Good call.
He's- that's-
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh,
Yes.
Commissioner Algieri,
Yes.
Commissioner Tillman,
Yes.
President Floyd.
Yes. Okay, motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Where are you? Commissioner Kane,
Okay, motion to approve sanitary bill warrant dated July 11, 2022, in the amount of $298,127.88. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Commissioner Kane?
Abstain?
Commissioner Walker?
Yes.
Commissioner Campus?
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh?
Yes.
Commissioner Algieri? Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
President Poyer?
Yes. Okay, motion to approve bond requisition number 13 from the 2019 B Construction Fund Sewer Revenue Bond in the amount of $42,743.04. This payment is for the Boston and Buena Vista Pump Station engineering fee. Can I get a motion?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote?
Commissioner Kane?
Abstain?
Commissioner Walker?
Yes.
Commissioner Campus?
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh?
Yes.
Commissioner Algieri?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
President Poyer?
Yes. Motion to award contract 2021-03 for the Jacktown Road Bridge replacement to Dragon Contracting at a cost of $632,000. $100,000 of this expense will be paid from the American Rescue Plan funds. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, where are we gonna get the money to pay for this? What's it gonna come out of? General fund?
Yeah. Roll call vote?
Commissioner Kane?
Abstain?
Commissioner Walker?
Yes.
Commissioner Campus?
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh?
Yes.
Commissioner Algieri?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
President Poyer?
Yes. Okay, motion to hire Christopher House as the full-time code enforcement official / building inspector at an annual salary of $75,000. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? We get a roll call vote?
Commissioner Kane?
Abstain?
Commissioner Walker?
Yes.
Commissioner Campus?
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh?
Yes.
Commissioner Algieri?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
President Poyer?
Yes. Motion to authorize Vasco Tree Service to remove 10 trees on Elizabeth Township property behind Stike Street at a cost of $8,900.
So moved.
Let's do a second, then we'll discuss.
Second.
So it came to our attention that this property might not be owned by the township. So we're looking into that, so I'm not sure if we
Well,
should.
not only was it might not be owned by the township, but the township was originally forbidden from going onto that property to cut these trees. So there's two parts to that issue.
I did secure a right-of-way agreement with
Okay.
adjacent property.
Okay.
And it's an agreement not drafted, it's kind of a jumble, no liability kind of.
All right.
And I signed.
I would almost like to amend it to say that, if we determine it's township property, that'd be okay.
Contingent on, yeah, it's on township property ownership, yeah.
Yeah.
You can do that.
So it should be,
Whoever made the motion, who made the motion?
Commissioner Algieri.
No. You will read over that?
yeah, amend that?
Absolutely.
And then who seconded?
I agree.
Chris.
Okay.
So just continue along with the discussion. So it would seem that since this is a stormwater scenario, and that stormwater is what's causing the erosion from these trees, that now, wouldn't the township just have a natural right of way to do what they want to improve this to? First of all, eliminating these trees is gonna,
Yeah, but
it's
even
not the end
if
of
it's
this
somebody else's
project.
property, you still need access. I mean, you can do it under emergency situations, if it's not an emergency, you're still gonna need to have
Okay.
access, if it's not our property. If it's our property, obviously, we're gonna.
Okay,
give it access.
and then the long-term plan here too, Greg, is not just to eliminate these trees which are falling into the stormwater creek, but to put some riprap in there and keep these banks from continuing to erode. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Who would do that, Paul?
Well, good question.
That's something you guys should do.
Well, then you have to do access to the properties to allow the machinery to get in there to move this riprap around, and that's a pretty big area. I started looking at that this morning. It's a lot of work to be done. I think we need to do it. I'm just bringing up some things we need to think about.
We just have to make sure we know the property.
Yeah.
That might not be the issue. Might not be the case. Any other comments on this? Roll call vote?
Commissioner Kane?
Abstain?
Commissioner Walker?
Yes.
Commissioner Campus?
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh?
Yes.
Commissioner Algieri?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
President Poyer?
Yes.
before we go, like, Mark, just on those ones, you probably could vote on them, because you have enough information in order to vote. The ones like the bills list where you haven't looked at it, you're good, you should abstain, but if it's something like that, you can certainly vote on it.
Next is motion to distribute $10,000 to each township fire department to be used for equipment and training. These funds will be distributed through the American Rescue Plan Fund.
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion on this?
Just a clarification, we've had 3 fire departments that have been receiving their separate funds. Is this going to continue with this? In other words,
It's a one-time thing.
what I mean is, Elizabeth Township Fire Department now is made up of 3 stations. Each station will be given 10,
Yes.
and then Central and also, all 5 stations. Just a clarification.
Yes. Any other discussion on this? If we go vote.
Commissioner Kane?
Yes.
Commissioner Walker?
Yes.
Commissioner Campus?
Yes.
Commissioner Walls?
Yes.
Commissioner Algieri?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
President Boyer?
Yes. Next, motion to ratify the vote from June 27, 2022, hiring Nick Algieri as a part-time employee at an hourly rate of $18.94 an hour. Can I get a motion?
We'll make that motion.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion on this? Rick,
Yeah.
Chris, go ahead. If you want to
I was
read it.
just gonna ask, the solicitor to discuss the part-time max, because obviously we have.
Right, there's a nepotism policy, but it does not apply to part-time positions, so, this would be fine, although I would recommend that Commissioner Algieri, of course, abstain on vote.
What is the name of the guys?
Well, I have a list, it's on my desk. He's gonna be working with the robotics, road out for condition app that we purchased, so he has to drive all the roads, and analyze the roads. He's gonna be continue working on the capital strategic plan. It doesn't mean that, I started when he was an intern. He's gonna help us with digitizing now with our large format scanner has shown up, so big initiative to digitize, especially the drawings downstairs, as I mentioned. They're deteriorating as we speak due to the condition down there. And I have there's other, MS4, this is another big one, so the MS4, GIS stuff. A lot of stuff just Brenda used to do because she's now involved in payroll and some other higher level stuff, so. Very excited to have him.
There's something that I would like to ask about since he spearheaded as an intern with the signage out here. I haven't,
He's actually already had started on that, so.
Perfect.
He's worked a couple of days, I think he's going on vacation for a couple of weeks, so we'll lose a little momentum, but, when him and, Mr. House start about the same time, we'll be hopefully back to normal.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Roll call vote.
Commissioner Kane?
Yes.
Commissioner Walker?
Yes.
Commissioner Campus?
Yes.
Commissioner Walls?
Yes.
Commissioner Algieri?
Abstain.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
President Boyer?
Yes. And next is motion to purchase rock salt during the 2022-2023 season from Cargill Incorporated at a cost of $88.96 per ton, with the additional alternative bids of $89 per ton, with triaxle loads $92 per ton, and less than triaxle loads at $95 per ton, for orders placed between August 1st, 2022 through and including October 15th, 2022. Cargill Inc. was the low bidder through the Shaycog bidding process. Can I get a motion?
I just have a quick question.
What's the motion?
Okay. I'll make the motion, I'll make the motion.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
Other discussion?
Is that delivery charge included in that cost per ton? Okay.
I just don't understand the variances in all these, Greg. I thought when it was set up, we were guaranteed a price through the Shaycog bid, but you have several different levels of.
Yeah, that's how it was laid out in the email. This is a motion to accept that.
Okay, all right.
But I guess,
Different pricing.
It's always,
yeah.
they don't want you ordered before October 15th.
Otherwise, they surcharge.
Yeah, they're in charge of board if you start home before the 15th of October.
And if I could add, Paul and I decided we're gonna go with this contract with Shaycog, but we're also gonna sign it with CoStars. And because we did have some delivery problems, if you recall last year, so So just to ensure that doesn't happen again, we're gonna balance the two, that way we have two suppliers in case we need extra salt. So I thought that was a really good, that was Paul's idea.
And just a comment for the public, $89 a ton, $400,000, $500,000 of salt is used every year, more than that, huh?
It'll be more after this project.
It's crazy.
That's $10 ton increase from last year.
Hey, that's a lot of salt.
Roll call vote.
Commissioner King?
Yes.
Commissioner Walker?
Yes.
Commissioner Campus?
Yes.
Commissioner Walls?
Yes.
Commissioner Algieri?
Yes.
Commissioner Toma?
Yes.
President Boyd?
Yes. Okay, if I could, motion for adjournment?
So moved.